And this is the point which I wanted to add, because we need to. There are some major changes happened, which shaped and will shape the new Syria in during the Syrian Arab Spring. 2011, protests and demonstration broke up in Syria in March 2011. And the first uh, demand was to cancel the emergency state. Al Ba'ath Party, when they came to power, they declared emergency state, so any officer can arrest anybody without a warrant. They can go to jail without any court, any judge, any note, any sentence. They can disappear for months, years, decades, and that was something which were really under took off and caused lots of dramas and troubles to the Syrian for 40 years. And people went to the street and asked to cancel the emergency state. We are not in a state of war for the last 40 years, and this is, yeah, shouldn't be the case anymore. They asked also to restructuring the security detention centers and the security forces. In Damascus alone, there are 13 security departments, and those, they don't follow any minister. So they don't follow any ministry. So they are not under the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And each of these security department, they have a general through, and mostly it's from Hafiz al-Assad time, who is the head of this department. And he also inherits his place to his sons or cousins. And those ones, they don't report to anybody. They don't report to the ministry. They don't report to al-Assad himself. They act on their own, and they have actually in the constitution a subject like, if a security officer is doing his work and he killed someone, he shouldn't go to court. That's it. So those security departments were chasing us for the last decades, and and the smallest soldier in this actually security forces can go to a university professor and kick him or hit him, and they have full access to everything in the country, and they get very good salaries. That's even, you can compare their salaries with the salaries of the university professors in Syria. And the unofficial numbers, there is 1 million security soldier in the whole Syria when 2011. There is no official numbers on it, but people start counting, and the number is between 800,000 and 1 million. But that's not an official number. And also they asked to restructuring the army. The army, we will come to that later, but there are groups of the army who also follow a leader. That's it. Like you are talking about a war prince or a warlord. Like, yeah, they follow some leaders, and there is the official army. We will come to that later because it has also big effect. But the army itself, it has groups which can do whatever they want in the country, and they are, nobody will ask them any question. You cannot. And the protest broke actually, which was very peaceful. This is a picture which everybody knows. It's from Daraya in Damascus, but no, it's from Banias, I think, in the coast Syria. People went with flowers and chantings and singing to the freedom, to the liberty, and they were always saying like, "We are all one. The people and the army are one," and that started in 2011 in March, and in June exactly, after like 3 months, the army was deployed. The army was deployed to the streets, and that's when the events start taking another turn. The first that so that's the protest 2011, and I will talk a little bit here about the army because this has too much impact about the fall of the regime and the shape of the new Syria. This is the logo of the Ministry of Defense, and it has the army behind it, and the army is official numbers between 200,000 to 300,000. Those are the mandatory services. If each male in Syria it must serve in the army for 2 to 3 years. During the revolution and the war, it became like 6 years. And those are our brothers, our uncles, our fathers, our sons. So this is the official army. They get very low salary. They face humiliation and very bad situations in general. And there are some high rank officers there, and those are usually on the borders. They put them on the borders, they put them in the middle of the desert to preserve the country. And yeah, they don't really have access, and they have traditional weapons, usually from the 50s and 60s, and that's it. But there is another form of army in Syria. And Bashar al-Assad, for example, through his father's time, they created the Republic Guardians. Imagine or not, this is their official logo, and I will leave it here about their logo. The estimation is around 25,000. Those are highly trained, and they get very good salaries, very good weapons, most recent modern weapons from Russia, and they are mainly in Damascus, in Cassian Mountain. They are. This is the Republic Guardians, and those are they get their orders not from the ministry, from the president himself, and they are loyal to the name of the president, not their presidential, position. No, the person. Those are the ones who are chanting with Bashar name. That's it. And this is not it. Maher al-Assad, the brother of Bashar, also inherited the fourth division. It's a group in the army. The numbers are between 14 to 15,000. I think it's more around 20,000, and it follows the same thing, but they follow Maher al-Assad. That's it. And these two groups, they have access to everything in the country. They get the free housing, free electricity, free cars, zero tax, zero for import and export. They run the country actually, and they can do whatever they want in the country. They can humiliate anybody. They can do whatever they want, and you cannot join these forces. You will be chosen to choose these forces. Mainly, this structure, the body of this organization, they will go to you certain families which are proved loyal to Al-Assad father and son, mostly from their villages and from they should be known, and they ask them to send their kids, their brothers there. So you will find a soldier in one of these formation his father was also on this formation, and his grandfather fought with Hafiz al-Assad. So that's the army which was deployed, and the official army was deployed in the streets, and it was influenced by the Egyptian model, because in Egypt the people took over the square, Tahrir Square, 500,000 person, and stayed there till demanding the fall of the regime. What the army did, they put in each square, each cross point in the whole cities in Syria, across Syria, couple of tanks, 50 to 100 soldiers from the normal army, and a small group of the Republic Guardians. And they have the full orders to engage. Any protest comes near a square, direct fire on the heads. That happened, and you can search it on your own. And there are lots of videos like opening fire on the protesters going near toward squares. What happened in 2012? It was the year of defections. Lots of soldiers and generals in this part of the army, they ditched the army. They were assigned a certain square to shoot on protests, and at certain moment they defect and they attacked the secret service or the Republic Guardians with them, and they escaped, and they declared that they are joining the Free Syrian Army. Lots of officers who are mainly there are the how to say the technocrats, like a doctor in the army who is also an officer, an engineer, and these ones who are actually running and functioning the body of the army's facilities, the army trenches, the army maintenance of the vehicles. So yeah, and they also exposed the direct orders to kill, and that was actually a turn in the mindset of the people, because at that point we still think there's something could work out, but the defections became more and more till reached a moment that the defected army created the Free Syrian Army, and some of these army defected with their machines, with their vehicles. And this is a photo from countryside of Damascus, and from a group of the Free Syrian Army. And they start recruiting also from the local people. Lots of local people joined them. So the 2012, it was the year of defection. So now we are having a new body with guns formed, and their main task was to protect the protests. So there was really a protest in certain city on a Friday. They will surround the city and they will engage with any force which comes to break out the protests. So that's actually when we have now some armed bodies, armed soldiers with under the Free Syrian Army fighting with the Syrian elite forces, and yeah, and during this area also lots of soldiers were killed from behind. They tried to escape or they refused to obey orders, and they also executed on the spot. That's when the defection started, and now we are going toward war, not protests and revolution. Okay, by the end of 2012, this is the Syrian map. The green areas are under the control of the revolutions and the Free Syrian Army, and the red areas are the regime. And this is actually the whole Syria. And indeed, there are no big cities here at all. It's only a Syrian desert. All the big cities in Syria are on this line, with the small cities on the Furat River. Indeed, the regime kept controlling all the big cities. Aleppo Centrum was still with the regime, all the coast. Damascus, but they have two big enclaves around it, and Homs also there was enclaves around it. That was the situation. The elite forces of the regime couldn't actually hold it anymore. They were shipped from city to city to attack and to do. And they, when they sent the normal army, big part of it was defecting or disobeying orders. So the regime was losing control. So they simply declared the war. In 2013, almost the end of 2012, the Syrian army declared the war. On who? With the Syrian people. That's when we see now the air forces are operating like there are a city which is protected by the Free Syrian army. Okay, shell them. Daily airstrikes, barrel bombs, cluster bombs, or what you name it, to the cities who disobey and refuse to let the Syrian army get the city back. For the first time in the history, we finally saw the Syrian Scud missile, this strategical weapons, which was actually the nightmare of Israel because Syria has Scud missiles, Scud C, and Scud get from North Korea, and they can actually do a damage to the Israeli if any war broke. We saw it. They shell the Syrian cities with the Scud missile. I don't know if you can see the size of this missile. This is normal people around it, and it turned out that these missiles use liquid fuel. So they take it out, they move it with this car, they make it standing like this, then they start fueling it, which will take hour or two. And the people around these military bases start filming it and sending warnings. There are Scud missiles coming. Then the people, we don't know. This can go 100 kilometers. Everybody was in the shelters undergrounds waiting to see where this will land, north, south, east. And for the irony is, if this will be ever used against Israel, yeah, they will shell it. Even if they start fueling it, the Israeli can send F-16, destroy it, and come back without even being refueled. So it was a clear declaration of war on the Syrian people by the Syrian army with fully weapons and fully engagement orders. But still, there are not enough troops to go to the cities to fight because the elite forces were exhausted. Lots of them were killed, moving from city to city. And here I also try to be non-biased as much as I can. And then things took another turn of event in 2013. This is General Qasim Soleimani, the head of the Basij, the Republic Guardian of Iran. And these photos were taken in Aleppo, in Syria. What happened afterward is Hezbollah came in, the Lebanese party, and they did. This is a city from Al Qusayr city. Al Qusayr city is this green area in the border of Lebanon. This was the lung of the Syrian revolution because yeah, if through Lebanon is a free country somehow, so you can't if you reach Al Qusayr, for example, activists can get in and out, reporters can get in and out, logistics can get in and out, and I will say it also, weapons can get in and out through this border of the mountain. Then Hezbollah launched a huge attack supported by media. They even later on they attacked the whole Mount Palamon mountains. They even announced a song and a sheet, encouraging their soldiers to fight in Palamon. And then the Syrian people at a certain point found themselves being attacked from the behind from Hezbollah militia. Hezbollah did the on ground front lines fighting in these areas, but that was not enough. Later on, we saw Fatimiyun group, which also a hardliner Shia group, came from Afghanistan mainly. They were recruited by the Iranian Basij and sent to the front lines in Syria. That was not it. Later on, we saw also Zainabiyun. It's a Pakistani Shia hardliner group, which was also sent to the front lines to fight us, and for our actually, yeah, how to say it, like that was very very shocking for us. I will come to that even later. That was not it, because later on we see the Hashd al-Sha'bi, which was formed in Iraq to fight ISIS, and they came to Syria. I dare anybody to find any battle between these people and ISIS in Syria, because ISIS were fought by the SDF forces funded by the Americans. They were in Damascus fighting the opposition. And to be here also very, let's say, very honest and very fair, when they came, these soldiers, they are professionals. They know how to avoid any propagandas. They don't listen to the media. They came with the ideas. We came to help the Syrians to get rid of the Takfiris and extremists and radicals. We are helping Syrian people. But especially Hezbollah fighters, they speak Arabic. With the time going month after month, there was dialogues, prisoners, negotiations. They were shocked. Some of them were shocked, like we are not helping the Syrians, we are helping Al-Assad. And also, I will be fair here. Part of them, big part of them, said, no, we are not doing this. So the quantity of these fighters went down from the Arabic speaker part, but the quality became different. The one who stayed are very full of hatred. So they were, let's say, the other side of the ISIS. They literally sit in dialogues when they get in prisoners, when they speak, when they negotiate, like we are here to defend, to get revenge from Al Hussein killers. You are dishonoring Al Bayt, you are dishonoring the graveyards, which was very shocking for the people, because the Shias and all these minorities, all this is part of the Syrian community. That was never the case. These graveyards was there for hundreds of years. Nobody touched them. It's the other way around. When the Abbasis came to Damascus, they destroyed the graveyards of the Umayyads. But yeah, so this was a very, and this actually, this that was a dark year, because these actions actually made the only so tellable story is the extremist story. On the other side, the extremists in Syria start also rising. So see, they came to kill you. The only all of them are infidels. These are yeah, those are they don't believe in the same God you believe in. They are dishonoring the Sahaba. So the only story what's sold at that year is the extremist story, and all the normal people or the reasonable people were going away. So that was also now taking events. We have strategical weapons used against cities. The Free Syrian Army had only the weapons get from the Syrian army. So there was no anti-airplane missiles. There was no even attacking missiles. The Free Syrian Army developed defensive strategies by the help of Palestinians. We will get that later. And that was a very dark year on the military phase. And that's when the script was starting to be flipped. That happened on the military front. What about same year? What happened in the let's say humanitarian actually side? First of all, 2013, the Caesar files were leaked. Caesar files, for the one who doesn't know them, who don't know them, actually, it's photos taken between 2011 and 2012, leaked by a sergeant in the military court. And these photos actually are for detainees who get arrested in the protest and disappeared, and they were apparently they were killed, and they were actually buried in public graveyards, in group graveyard, and they disappeared. That year left, and that file exactly. By the way, I picked a photo which that's the best photo I can show. There are photos for full bodies. The photos were for 27,000 photos, and they belong to around 12,000 prisoners. That's in Damascus alone. In 1 year, there are 2,000, 12,000, 12,000 protesters died under torturing in the detention centers in Damascus alone. That was shocking. That was released near the Mother Day, and we had to search for our beloved ones in these photos. I found one of my friends in these photos. It took me, my other friend, and the brother of that victim 1 hour discussing on back then in a Skype call, is he him or not? Because if you are looking at a photo with an eye taken out of its place, you will not see the same person anymore. That files left mental scar with the old Syrian people. If any Syrian doesn't have a mental scar, then he is not a real Syrian for that year. And that was not it. Daria massacre started and happened actually. Daria is one of my novel goes around Daria, and it also describes the Daria massacre. Back then, the Syrian elite forces army used to go to cities and search for, they will go to the cities, search for broad activists. They have list of names. They search for weapons. Sometimes they arrest randomly. Sometimes they hit the people. Yeah, like they go in, they go out with some prisoners. This time they went to Daria and they killed 2,000 persons, home by home, door by door. And the official number is around 600. I lived in that area. I know the number is at least 2,000. The people say around 3,000. And I also picked the photos of the graveyard, one of the graveyards. I didn't pick the photos of the victim itself. The photos are there. Anybody who is interested, he can search for Daria massacre, see the witnesses, see what happened there. And that was happened 15 kilometers from the center of Damascus, the city of Daria. That also left mental scars, whole buildings, whole family wiped out from the face of earth. With that's just because there were protests in that city. They came in, they killed as much as they can, and they left. As simple as that. It was not it. Afterward, Al Hawla massacre broke in. Apparently, these massacres were, it was not something just happening. It was organized. Al Hawla is in the center of, near Homs, in the middle of Syria. Also, a group of hardliners, the fanatics of the regime and their ideology, they came to Al Hawla area. They get to villages, killed around 1,000 persons, and they left very hatred slogans about getting revenge of old historical things. I will not go there right now. And I'm really sorry, I may show here picture plus 18, so I need, and that's even the best photo I can show here. And this is one of the graveyards where the people digged for Al Hawla massacre. And that was not it. Aleppo had its own share of the tragedy. Nahr Quake massacre happened, the Quake River massacre. I don't know what to say or how to describe this massacre. One day in the morning, a river quake actually just their bodies floating there. And the story is much way shocking because the sewer system was blocked in Aleppo and it goes in a parallel of the Quake River. So the people came to solve the sewer system broken. They broke part of the sewer system and the water came out to the river and it was washing bodies thrown. There is a big detention center by the Syrian secret forces there. They washed 147 bodies, handcuffed people, and executed and thrown to the sewer system. The next morning in Aleppo, the mothers, the people start searching for the beloved ones washed by the sewer system. That happened in Aleppo, and that was not it. I picked a massacre from each area. That year hold at least 20 massacre that brutal, at least 20. I'm not mentioning all of them. Al Bayda and Banias massacre happened in the coast, near Latakia, Banias city, and that's the setback in a humanity. What happened in Bayda and Banias massacre was a setback not only in the Syrian mental health, but in the whole of humanity. Hardliners also left very hatred slogans, and they went village by village. And this is one of the best photos I can get. It's that massacre. The percentage of children under 10 was more than 70%. They chased, they hit, but it was oriented, orchestrated to only attack kids. That year, we had to look up each couple of days on the photos of massacres as brutal as that. So we have airstrikes, Scud missiles, cluster bombs, foreigners fighting us on the front. They speak weird language. And on our back, we got actually the hatred groups of the Syrian, aligned with the Syrian regime, doing these huge massacres. The message was clear. It's time for you to shut down. What that was it? No. Al-Hutam chemical attack. We till 2013, we were always hearing Obama saying like the chemical weapons are red line. If the Syrian regime used chemical weapons, that will be it. Chemical weapons, chemical weapons. Guess what? We saw the chemical weapons and nothing happened afterward. Al Ghuta, which was mentioned by Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, it was hit by chemical attack, sarin gas. 3 to 4 thousand people died on the spot. And uh, if we carry on with the flow, that was not it in 2013. 2014 brought us ISIS. ISIS first entered Syria from Iraq and they hit with a Shu'aitat tribe. A Shu'aitat is a very known Arabic Muslim Sunni tribe. Sorry for this categorization. It is what it is. And a Shu'aitat, actually, it was organized under one of the Free Syrian Army groups. They fought ISIS, and ISIS defeated them. And they declared them as the enemy of God because they fought the Caliphate. And they executed 400 or 500 persons from them on the spot. They collected all the males and they executed them. There are videos and documentaries around it. And they declare anybody from Ash-Shu'aitat, they refuse the name of Allah. So they give them this sentence. So if you find anybody from Ash-Shu'aitat, woman, kid, old man, you can't kill it. That's what ISIS did for Ash-Shu'aitat. Now we will answer your question. When they came to Al-Raqqa, which became a very popular center for them, they took Al-Raqqa not from the Syrian regime. That's a huge misunderstanding and a huge problem. They took it from Ahrar al-Sham Islamic movement. حركة أحرار الشام الإسلامية, أحرار الشام Islamic movement was formed by Abu Yazan al-Hamwi and his 2 or 3 other colleagues who were released from the Islamic prisons in Syria in 2012. Let me get here a small detour. The regime released those people. He was convinced that they will move from peaceful movement to fighting, because in this Salafi ideology there is nothing called protest. You can go and yell and they kill you, you go to Jahannam. That's it. If you want to go against a brutal governor or hakim which is not ruling by the name of Allah, you should fight it. That's it. That was the plan. Did it happen? Yes. They took weapons, they formed groups, they joined the defected army, but things get out of control because when the regime released them, he thought, now I can shell them with all the weapons, nobody will say a thing. But the Syrian regime, they didn't think for a second that they will take 2/3 of Syria. The Syrian regime didn't think for a second that they will get fund from Turkey, from Saudi Arabia, I will say it, from Qatar. They will give them money, weapons, logistics, enough to survive. They didn't give them weapons to win, but enough to survive. And that get out of the hand. And let me here answer you one of the critical questions. Why ISIS came to Syria? It was Islamic State only in Iraq, دولة العراق الإسلامية. Why it became ISIS, Islamic State in Iraq and Sham? Because even Al-Qaeda branch in Syria, جبهة النصرة, led by Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, Ahmad al-Shara, it was their branch sent to Syria to do jihad. But in 2014, end of 13, al-Baghdadi, the Caliphate, who was kicked out and killed, he said like, al-Jawlani and our branch in Syria is not doing the correct jihad. They are working side by side with infidels, which they are holding this green flag. It's the green of secular groups. They are not implementing Sharia. And that happened when Jabhat al-Nusra Front came to Syria as a branch of Al-Qaeda. Al-Jawlani showed enough dynamicity to say, okay, Syria has a special culture. They will kick me out. So even in the battles of Aleppo, when they took half of Aleppo, Al-Nusra Front was in the front line. When they won, they put the forces under the local concile orders. So the people gathered, created a local concile, and created also a Shara'i Majlis Shura, which has some people who knows religious. And these people are from Aleppo. And he put the forces under the order of this concile. And that law of al-Baghdadi mind said, you won this war, you should rule it, implement Sharia. You are putting now people, and they don't. You are not sure about their aqidah, if they are really believers or not. You are not doing enough jihad, and so that's when al-Baghdadi said we cancel the branch of our al-Qaeda in Syria. We will do it ourselves the right way. And when they get to Syria, Al Qaeda branch of Nusra Front aligned with the Syrian Islamist opposition groups and fought ISIS. I will come to that. There are big battles happen to it. So that's a big dispute happens here. The version of the Islamism was implemented in Syria was so much tuned by the culture, by the context, by the spectrum you are coming from. So they took Al-Raqqa from an Islamic movement. It was even categorized as ISIS was categorized as terrorist group. Al-Nusra was categorized as terrorist group. Ahrar Sham Islamiyah was also categorized as terrorist group. And those are the ones who fought ISIS in Al-Raqqa. They lost the battle. Then ISIS continued to Aleppo. There was the huge fight, and they were rebelled in Aleppo, and they deterred. The biggest group there was Liwa al-Tawheed, the Tawheed group, and they were also Islamists, and also they have jihadist ideas. They had a huge battle of went over days and weeks with ISIS, and they chased them out of Aleppo till they crossed the river. So like, they kicked them out of this river here. They kicked them out of this area, and then they went south, ISIS near Damascus. Then Jaish al-Islam, led by Zahran Aloush, who was released from also that prison, they fought them. And there is a famous speech for Zahran Aloush who said, like, because, okay, one step back. In Al-Raqqa, Ahrar Sham movement, lots of their soldiers, they said, we will not fight our Muslim brothers. So it's wrong to Muslims to fight Muslims, so they didn't fight. But after ISIS took Al-Raqqa and showed their true face, then the Syrian opposition groups realized the danger. And in the south and in Damascus, Zahran Alush was in his speech to his soldiers, he said, like, if you fight the Syrian regime and you die, you get the ajr of one martyrs. If you fight ISIS, you get the ajr of two, because they are not only killing us, they are also showing bad view on Islam. So ISIS never managed to get on Aleppo, never managed to get on Damascus. They only had small enclave in southern Damascus and small enclave in Dar'a, which happened later, but they were rebuilt, and they hold still in the east of Syria. And then later on, that will not cover in this session because not relevant. The Americans funded the Turks groups, the SDF forces, and they fought ISIS. They gave the Kurds, sorry, the Kurdish militias, very good weapons. They did air support for them, and they wiped out ISIS from the east of Syria. And by the way, while the Syrian opposition was fighting ISIS, the Syrian regime actually broke and took lots of the lands from the rebels or from the oppositions. ISIS-wise, I only found 3 battles in these 4 years of ISIS in which they fought the Syrian regime. Only 3 battles. All the other battles were against the Syrian oppositions. 90% at least. There are no official numbers of it, but if you count the villages, that's something we worked on back in 2018. 90% of ISIS victims were Arabic Muslim Sunnis. Yes, they attacked minorities, other religions, but who did they wipe? Who did they leash? The Arabic Muslims. Who did they cut hands? And it was even worse when they were attacking a minority village. They were asked them to join Islam. If they lie, I said, yeah, okay, we are Muslim, they will leave them alone. Then they start oppressing them. But if you fight them as a Muslim, they would say, you know what Prophet Muhammad is, and you know who Khalifat is, and you fought us. You are murtad, and there is no coming back from that. So everybody who fought them was followed, chased, and killed. That was the story in ISIS in nutshell. The biggest battles of ISIS in Syria was against the opposition groups, and especially this Islamist group. And if you need also to take, they fought with Al-Nusra a lot. And if you want to take it also to one more step, because they share the same resources and they share the same audience, It's very dangerous. They are afraid of each other because once that Baghdadi declared himself Khalifa, Jabhat al-Nusra had a very setback because all the fighters there who came to do jihad, like, should you follow unknown, the word called Al-Jawlani, who is hidden, and to do jihad, or follow the Khalifat of Islam to do jihad. So lots of fighters defected from al-Nusra and went to al-Baghdadi, especially the foreigners who came to fight from under Al-Qaeda umbrella. Also the funds, the jihad money is something which is very long, complicated topic. In all the
Okay.
mosques, yeah, yeah. So also the jihad money which was flow to these groups in Syria, as okay, like you are a rich person in Saudi Arabia or whatever, you need to fund some people. This money we're giving to Hamas first, because they are
Mm.
fighting for their lands. Now I want to send part of money to Syria. Should I send it to this Islamic group called Ahrar al-Sham, or to this group, or to send it to the Caliphate of Muslimin? So it was also strategical and competition between these groups. They fought each other, and ISIS was rebelled from the big cities of Damascus and Aleppo by the rebels, by the opposition, not by the Syrian regime, not by the Russians, not by anybody else. The Russian came. The Russian came actually now with, and by 2015. This is a map of Damascus, and there was a Battle of Allahu Ghalib. Battle of Allahu Ghalib was launched by the opposition groups around Damascus, led by Islam Zahran Aloush, and they attacked these areas and from all axes, and they maintain the high mountains here, and they cut the road which comes actually from the east, and they cut the roads which come from the south and the west. And at that moment, even later on, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, said in 2015, if we didn't interfere, the Syrian regime would fall. So what happened in 2015 was similar to what happened in 2024. The only difference is the Russia didn't interfere, Iran didn't interfere, and Al-Jawlani or Abu Ahmad al-Shara found an international sponsor to support him. What happened is, when that happened, we saw for the first time the T-90 Russian tank, which all the defense mechanism developed by the Free Syrian Army couldn't stop. But this tank was too much expensive, so it was not only spread in some fronts, but we saw only also the T-72 with the interactive armor shield tank. Those ones which came in, this one has interactive armor which can blow mine before it reaches it. And so all the defensive weapons for the rebels are not useful anymore. And then we are also introduced the most latest generation of the MiG 31, 32 Russian Air Force. So it's not enough to get all these parties against us. Then Russia came with full power, with these weapons, with the exhausting after fighting ISIS, with the advance of the foreign militias on the front lines, with the Scud missiles. That when the revolution started shrinking and losing battles. The Russian came and said the Russian did the dirty job. When they came, they are the ones who led and orchestrated cleaning out all these areas from the oppositions around Damascus. They went area by area, city by city. They sent these tanks, airstrikes, bring these elite forces to the front, keep shelling, keep shelling, keep shelling till they surrounded. There is no winning in a battle. For example, in Al Ghouta, there was around 50 airstrikes per day in the all areas. And you should surround or will keep doing this. After 2-3 weeks, the people surrounded and handed over the cities. So 2015, the Russian came in. Then the displacement started, and each area was cleaned. And cleaned is not a good word, but each area in which these forces came in,
Evacuated. Evacuated them.
evacuated. Exactly. They didn't allow the people to stay. They said you should go to the north. They start evacuating the people to the north. And if you go by out with the history, similar thing happened in Afghanistan in the 90s when they start also evacuating people from Kunduz, to Kunduz, to Herat, from Kunduz to Herat. the container also massacre. That's a common practice, actually, it turned out to in the history. In Bosnia, something similar happened. So they start evacuating the people to the north. Idlib city in the north, the usual population is 1.2 millions. By 2018, and later on, it became 4 millions. And these 4 millions, 2 millions of them are in refugees. I'm not mistaken here. 2 millions were living in refugee camps because there is around 800,000 who went to Idlib and rented houses and stayed. But half of the population were living in refugee camps. So that's when the battles started. They start evacuating people city by city. 2016, they evacuated Daraya after horrible shelling. 2018, the Battle of Al Ghouta. Afterwards, Damascus and all surrounding was declared with the side of the regime. They went sit, and the only remaining part was in the north. And with the huge amount of refugees, they couldn't start shelling because that would be an international disaster. And also, the Turkish government supported this area because, yeah, they were also having lots of troubles with refugees. And if they start shelling, they will go also to Turkey. So that actually the situation froze here. And by the end of 2018, I found this map, which is from 2021 drone, but that was the similar situation by 2018. If you see the colors are not dark enough. So this is the yellow area with the SDF forces, the Kurdish militias backed by the states. The red areas with the regime. Oh, sorry. And you have here the small enclave here in Idlib, which was actually the opposition. And that's an important point here. When they evacuated these areas, all the opposition's fighters, they went to the north. So now this area is not only, sorry, I get some notification. I don't know what is it. Where was it? Okay. So these areas actually were full of fighters and groups now. It's not only civilians. So, and if you see here, this is a drone by Jusur Research Center with some also authentic researchers. This is the foreign bases in Syria in that year. The yellow ones are the International Alliance Against ISIS, which is the American points, which are in the north here. The blue ones are the Russians. You can see the Russians are here, which they have here a military base, and they are here, which have the port also, and around Damascus. The red ones are the Turkish air bases, Turkish military bases, and they are around the borders of the area they took in the north. And the green ones are the Iranian-backed militias, and you can see that they have the road from Iraq, which goes to Aleppo to the coast, and they have also the road which go to Damascus, and the intense area here in the south near Lebanese border and the Israeli and the occupied Palestine. And the most foreign bases were the Iranian-backed militias, and that's when it came from. The Syrian people back then, they have the feeling they were occupied by Iran. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what we were feeling because all these bases, when you see all these foreigners, and in Syria, you could say something about the Russian, it's okay, about the American is okay, about Bashar, no, about Hezbollah or about no, that's a deal breaker. By 2018, that was the situation, and I have a better picture here. And that was these are the borders of the areas which actually was controlled by the oppositions, and they stayed on it. And by 2018, there was an agreement between Turkey, Iran, and Russia. They call it the خفض التصعيد or de-escalation zones. They draw the map here. They put Turkish military bases here and Russian military points here and Turkish here. And they said, okay, this line is the opposition, and this line is the Syrian regime, and that's it. And when they draw that line, and that's when the situation froze in Syria, 2020. And no, there was small change will happen later. When that happened in Syria, we had 13.8 million Syrian person who was evacuated from their place, refugees. internally and externally. That's more than the population of the whole Belgium. 7 million were internal refugees in Syria, and the rest had to leave Syria. We had 60% of our cities and towns destroyed by the airstrikes, completely wiped out. Cities completely wiped out, the infrastructure wiped out. And we have 1.4 million killed. The official numbers are around 900,000, but we know that the number is around 1.4 million person killed in this time, and we have 500,000 missing persons. The documented number with first name, last name, and which security branch kidnapped him is around 300,000. But we know that the official the number is around 500,000. That's when the situation froze before the de-escalation started in 2022. That's when the militias here, they took 1/3 of this area. So they advanced and they took 1/3 of this area, and it was known on the play map that they want to take the whole Idlib step by step. And the Russians were saying we need the M5 road. See this M5 road which goes from the north to the south. They said we will come in till we take it. Then they said, okay, but M4 is also important. So in between 2020 and 2022, there was each couple of months an advance from, and here, yeah, again, I'm saying it as it was. Mostly the Iranian backed up militias, they were getting through here, and they were keep going through till 2022. And the only thing which stopped them was the broke of the Russian and Ukrainian war. That was when everything really, really, really froze, and there were no more advance from these militias toward Idlib city. This was the longest part of the presentation, but it has lots
Yeah.
of, yeah, indeed, it has lots of context which will explain and actually draw what will happen next. Give me a second.